Well, hello to nobody at all. Heavenly, where are you, woman? Told me to hurry up. Now I'm waiting on you. Hold on, I gotta tell my son to be quiet. Well, this is awkward. Hello, anybody out there? It's weird. All right, well, I'm gonna go anyways. Wanted to watch something. Do that. Yeah, I wanted to show you this because this is interesting, actually. All right, I'm gonna play this video real quick. It's about the missing woman, and she was in the Mojave Desert as well. So her husband is claiming that she was taken. Um, so I'm gonna play that video real quick. It's interesting. All right, this one right here.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and exclusive access to all things.
An around-the-clock search right now for an Arizona missing woman who continues to be missing in the California Mojave Desert.
The former Henderson resident vanished more than 3 days ago during a hike with her husband.
Well, 13 Action News reporter Leah Pizzetti now tells you what happened in the minutes before she disappeared.
It's a desperate plea for help. Amanda's
It's just weird because the book I'm covering is in the Mojave Desert. But this woman's missing as of, I think, a week now she's been missing. So, I mean, that's creepy. And her husband does believe that she was taken. Now, I don't know by aliens or not. I guess we're going to find out. Oh, my bad. It was even longer than that. She went missing Friday, July 12th. Oh, wow. This person says, we're exactly in the Mojave Desert. I live in the Mojave Desert. We hike in the summer all the time. We are used to the heat. Hiking in certain areas can be dangerous if not prepared, though, or if you come upon someone's property. Um, there's a lot of trafficking near where I live. Women are taken or assaulted all the time. Crazy stuff happens here, especially near main highways. Wow. Let's see if anybody says anything about aliens. I wonder if this has to do with the man who Sheriff Powell was fleeing from. She also went missing during a hike nearby, similar scenario in age, both in the same month, except she was able to flee and survive after 4 days. Wow. Oh no, she's my kid's grandma. We are devastated and hope she returns home safely. We found out last night, and he told me today he was very sad. Let's see if there's any updates. I don't believe he's lying. I think she was taken. I hope they find her. I'm just gonna respond back to her. I don't really think I should say that. In the news. Okay, I'm gonna play the rest of this.
Looking for his wife after she went missing over the weekend while hiking. Bob and Barbara Thomas frequently explore together, taking their trailer on small trips, so this weekend wasn't anything unusual. They did a short hike in the Mojave Desert and were almost back to their camper when Bob stopped to take a picture.
By the time I took the pictures, she was continuing on because she wanted to use the RV, and she rounded the corner and I lost sight of her.
That's the last time he saw her. He got back to their camp and there was no trace of her, so he called 911.
They had the fire trucks out there, the ambulance, the paramedics. They actually brought a dog team out later. They had the helicopter that was coming in.
Even with this massive search party, there was no sign of her anywhere. Search and rescue is still out there looking, but Bob thinks something happened when she crossed a road to get back to their camp.
My feeling is that she was picked up because she had to cross a highway. She was
Wait,
wearing a
what?
bikini. And
He just said he took a picture of her, turned around, she was gone, right?
Or anywhere. Search and rescue is still out there looking, but Bob thinks something happened when she crossed a road to get back to their camp.
My feeling is they actually brought a dog team out later. They had the helicopter, the ambulance, the paramedics, the fire trucks out there.
Called 911.
They had
no trace of. He got back to their camp and there was no trace of her, so he.
RV, and she rounded on because she wanted to use the RV, and she rounded the corner and I lost sight of her.
That's the last time he saw her. He got back to their camp and there was no trace of her, so he called 911.
They had the fire trucks out there, the ambulance, the paramedics. They had.
So he turned around to take a picture and lost sight of her. So what? I'm confused.
They actually brought a dog team out later. They had the helicopter that was coming in.
Even with this massive search party, there was no sign of her anywhere. Search and rescue is still out there looking, but Bob thinks something happened when she crossed a road to get back to their camp.
My feeling is that she was picked up because she had to cross a highway. She was wearing a bikini and she had a beer in her hand.
He thinks there's a chance she was taken to the Las Vegas area, so he's asking everyone to stay on high alert.
I just want my wife back. And if somebody out there has her, which I feel somebody does, please drop her off in a safe place where she can contact us. And that's it.
This heartbroken husband looking for any answers that could lead him to his missing wife.
And we always tell each other before we go to bed at night how much we love each other.
Yeah, I don't see any updates on this.
Whoever has her, please release her. No questions asked.
That was Leah Pizzetti reporting. And at this point, authorities do not expect criminal activity and are focusing their efforts on searching that area. Now, anybody with information is asked to call the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department's Colorado River Station. Barbara Thomas is 69 years old, 5'8", and in good health.
Try.
Yeah, I don't see anything else. So that's creepy as hell. But that's basically not a photo, but like a drawing that somebody what I don't know, I'm not sure who did, but this is what apparently it was kind of like in the Mojave Desert from this book. That's what that thing looked like. the UFO. That's what it looked like with all the lights, and then in the middle it had the shining dome thing. It's crazy. All right, I'm going to continue on. So I believe now we're what? Now we're on part 3, and this one's called Watchers. All right. It's been time, she says. I even went early for you, Heavenly, by 5 whole minutes. All right. La Mirada, California, October 22nd, 1989 at 4:35 p.m. When Tom and Elise returned to their home, the normalcy was jarring. Tom Jr. had spied them coming down Clear Spring, so that he and Wolfie and Carol, with Zoe in her arms, were all waiting when they pulled into the driveway. Didn't expect you back so soon, Wolfie called to his son, who was getting out of the truck, and I don't see no mule Buck either. Hey, Triple. Nah, no luck, he conceded. Not this time, anyway. Tom Jr. ran to his mom. She embraced him like she'd never let go. I missed you so much, she gushed, impassioned. I missed you too, Mommy. And how was Zoe? Elise asked hopefully. An angel, but you said her mother-in-law looking frightened. Have you been ill? Elise let go of Thomas, then turned away. So now they finally got back from their trip. No, just a little tired. She lied, walking alongside Wolfie as they entered the house. It's my fault, really, Tom said. Mid Hills was sold out, so we had to sleep roadside the first night, then set up camp near Tabletop the next. Sold out, Wolfie repeated. This time of year? That's hard to believe. Tell me about it, Tom said. Well, did you at least make it into Nevada? Elise, who was still fawning over Tom Jr., smiled miserably. Yeah, I played the slots and Tom even won $70. Carol, the optimist, sipped some coffee out of a cup that has been waiting on the console, so at least it wasn't a total loss. No, Elise agreed wearily. It was fun, but if you don't mind, I think I'd better go take a shower and lie down. Carol, who was a trained nurse, walked toward her, placing the palm of her long, thin hand over Elise's forehead. No fever. She turned to her son. What did you do to this poor girl? Tom shrugged. Hey, country girl. Bet they never did go hunting, Wolfie jibbed. Probably spent the whole weekend dancing and whooping it up at Whiskey Pete's. Yeah, right. If you knew what they did. Carol shepherded Elise through the narrow hallway into the master bedroom. Elise sat on the edge of the bed, then kicked off her Reeboks. She smiled weakly. I don't think I'm going to bother with the shower just now. Carol's expression was keen with concern. You and Tom? No, nothing like that. Just very, very tired. Carol watched as her daughter-in-law curled up beneath the covers. Elise was asleep before she turned to leave. Realizing that Elise wasn't feeling well and Tom seemed exhausted, Carol and Wolfie said their goodbyes before with baby Zoe napping and Tom Jr. in the playroom watching cartoons. Tom joined his son, his 6'1", 225-pound frame, eased comfortably into the recliner. At last he put his feet up, his mind a muddle of fears and theories and emotions, while Tom Jr. laughed hysterically at the antics of Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd on the TV screen. The contrast between the warm familiarity of the playroom and the calculated cruelty of all that he and Elise had gone through in the Mojave could not have been more stark. What was he to do now that the experience was over? Was it possible for a man who had seen what he had to put these feelings away in some closet in the recesses of his mind and slip back into everyday existence as if nothing had happened? If they had been chosen. Oh, good. Hey, Teresa. No worries. I just started, girl. I think did you already do a video? I probably missed it. I was out all day. I just got back actually like an hour ago. I had to go check my mail, which is like almost 2 miles away from me, so it was a trek. And we decided to stop for oh my gosh, I always forget what they're called. Loaded fries? No. I don't know what the hell they're called. Something like that. I think they're called loaded fries. Oh, you did 2 already. Holy crap. Yeah, those loaded fries. So we want to stop and try them at Chuck's. Oh my God, they're so good. Like these French fries. They have French fries and then they put homemade ranch dressing, drizzled on it, green onions, a bunch of different cheeses, and sour cream and bacon. It was amazing. I'm obsessed with them, and they're really cheap too, surprisingly. It's from Chuck's. If they had been chosen as the final being, seemed too intimate. What was he to do? What was their mission if they weren't part of some grander plan? And all of it had been a shitty event, one that could never repeat itself and that only he and Elise could know. The kind of freaks that had this strange and shocking experience left them. So that's the thing. In the beginning of this book, Tom already was introduced to these aliens before. He had already seen them, and when he was younger, I think he was 14 years old. He had already seen them, and I think he forgot, and he never did tell anybody. So then when him and his wife were abducted, he's like, "Oh my God, there's that feeling again." It's almost like, I guess, the tingling feeling starts in your legs. I don't know, because I've never been abducted. So he was saying, like, to himself in his mind, he's like, "Oh my God, it's happening again." And that's when he told Lisa the story. Hey, cool gamer. Tom's eyes fell upon his 2.5-year-old son. Hilarious. Watching Elmer Fudd, dressed in formal hunting attire, blasting away with a shotgun as he chased bugs through a cornfield. The sight of it just set the memory of his vision loose like jagged slivers of glass coursing through the vessels of his brain. He remembered the rawness of his desperation while being hunted and the calculated deliberation of his stalker and wondered if he was not the same victim of prey to the creatures he had encountered. The experience left him questioning everything about humanity and religion, about himself. What a ridiculous man he was, Tom speculated. How petty everything seemed when compared to the magnitude of them. The monster saviors he had met, now believed, had been visiting the East Mojave for generations. He pondered the future as Tom Jr. switched channels to Sesame Street, then a Bogart movie, and the Newlywed Game. The reality of the workload he'd left behind from the Norwalk State Hospital to the Metro Rail construction in Long Beach began seeping through his thoughts, and he wondered if he could do it, if he could bring himself to care about any of that again. Tom Jr. switched channels to ESPN, where the Celtics played with the Knicks, then went to John Wayne as a soldier in Fort Apache, holding momentarily on an ancient Twilight Zone rerun on the local station. Stop, he screamed. Tom Jr. held the channel, staring at his dad oddly as Tom watched, totally absorbed by what he was seeing. Holy shit. Space aliens had landed in Washington, D.C., offering to serve man, Tom remembered. Strange, but the play on the words after all these years seemed suddenly amusing, since the story was a cookbook, used literally to serve man as a food source. The hell? I'm confused. Oh, that's why it was the Twilight Zone, duh. So he was on. So his child was flicking through the stations. That's what it was. And they end up landing on that ancient Twilight Zone rewind on a local station. And his father said, stop. Okay. So space aliens. Okay. So this is a Twilight Zone. You guys remember that show? I haven't watched that in years. So space aliens had landed in Washington, D.C., offering to serve man, Tom remembered. Strange, but the play on the words after all those years seemed suddenly amusing, since the story was about a cookbook used literally to serve man as food source. Dad, Tom Jr. complained. Just a little while longer, he asked, smiling, then laughing and finally bursting into tears. Broad Serling's aliens were tall, with large craniums and descended arms, clearly of superior intelligence. They communicated telepathically, encouraging their human victims to eat hearty before feasting on them themselves. That's disgusting. If you only knew, he muttered, eyes glistening with frustration. If you only fucking knew. Dad? Tom's attention returned from the TV screen back to Tom Jr., who had been studying him throughout. Why are you crying? Tom invited him up onto his lap, unable to control the tears now that rolled down the sides of his face. I don't know, Tommy, he confessed. The truth is, I don't know why I'm crying. That's scary when you see your parents cry, especially being 2.5. Elisa's eyes were closed and her body still as she slept, but her mind journeyed back to the Mojave and places unnamed where, like Tom, she struggled to comprehend what had occurred, what it could possibly all mean. Their experiences in the camper played over and over again in her mind. the diabolism of the gremlins, the illuminated figures so cruel, the probe that had threatened to destroy them, the comforter who offered them safetyness. Yeah, right. What world did they come from so foreign and strange? Were these instruments of good or the gods of evil? Elise agonized, but there seemed no clear solution, for the answer was both. True, this was not something either she or Tom had asked for. The sense of hopelessness to which they had been subjected was more than anything she could ever have imagined. Yet to know that it was yet to know that it all truly existed, that beings such as their comforter were real. What knowledge, Elise marveled, what power to treasure in one's soul. Surely such insight was valuable and need to be shared with others, but how? Where did it all fit? Still, one thing was certain. Elise had undergone a trauma that left her psychologically shattered. The part of her that reasoned knew this. The part of her that intuited understood it. For also all of those, for all through the night. I'm thinking and trying to read. You ever do that? I don't know. I don't know. I keep thinking about stuff and I don't know what I'm doing. Gosh, intrusive thoughts. That's what's happening. The part of her that reasoned knew this. The part of her that intuited understood it also. For all the night, the images so long forgotten or suppressed rose like cadavers from out of her subconscious. Images of her childhood attacker, of fears about little Thomas's survival at birth, of these alien life forms that had inflicted such pain. But there were other events, half hidden, that this night began emerging into Lisa's vocabulary of terror. Dark corridors and lighted ones, a persuasive sense of physical violation, and always that feeling, the perception that someone was watching. Elise sprang up in her bed, heart pounding and eyes wide open. What have you done to me? She blurted. But no one was there, not even Tom. Elise peeked at the clock on the night table beside her. It was 3:30 a.m. She slid her feet into a pair of slippers beneath the bed, then crept down the hallway, careful not to wake the kids. Hi, Esty. In the kitchen, pursuing a set of architectural drawings, was her husband wearing the burgundy bathrobe she'd given him for Christmas. New hours? She asked gently. He laid the drawings down on the kitchen table. Can't sleep? Since 2. She walked to the fridge. Warm some milk up for you? Nah, you know me. He abstained. Once I'm up, this long, I might as well make a nut of it. How about some coffee? Why not? Elise plucked 2 cups from saucers from the kitchen cabinet, then boiled some water. You had a nightmare, didn't you? He nodded grimly. Want to tell me about it? It's not a nightmare exactly, he explained. More like reliving the experience over and over in dreams. She poured the steaming water into his cup. How much do you remember? Tom's eyes raised from his cup, surprised. All of it. Why? What about when we were asleep? He guffawed. Well, no, I wouldn't remember that. I was asleep. But they were still there. The monitor, the searcher, the illuminated figures, too. Yeah, Elise sat across from him at the table. So how do we know other things didn't happen while we were sleeping? Oh, that's a scary thought. I suppose they could have, sure, Tom conceded, but we were in the camper the whole time. She took a gulp of coffee, her expression cool and composed. Seconds before was anything but that by the time she put the cup down. But where was the camper? On the ground, near the wash? And the ground? I don't follow. My point is, I don't think we ever came out from the museum, Tom. Her chin quivered. Wait, what? And that's what my nightmares are about. Not the experience, the time after the experience when we were sleeping. Tom reached for her hand across the table. At least anything's possible. My God, I hardly know who I am anymore, let alone the things that may or may not have happened to us out there. But you, what about your dreams? She persisted, the ones you had tonight. Tom searched his mind to retrieve them. Mostly about the visions, the ones in the camper. His eyes narrowed. But there's another I can't hardly explain. What? It's more of an image than a dream, a feeling like walking through a kind of tunnel or passageway. White, like the light from the probe? He nodded. Yes. I had the same image tonight in my dreams. Tom took a sip of coffee, then sighed. Isn't what we remember enough? Jesus, Elise, it's not like we're going to go out looking for these things to worry about. No, she answered, leaning toward him over the table. But if something happened during that time that could help us understand, help us explain what it all means, she looked at him, her green eyes wet and yearning. Tom, I swear I think I'm going crazy. I worry. I worry so much that they're going to take our kids and that they've changed me in some way or made me pregnant. Oh my God, she thinks she's pregnant. Remember they plucked something from her belly or put something in her belly? In her abdomen, she said. You mean what happened toward the end in the camper? That and other things. What? I didn't say anything this morning because I didn't think it was important, but now I don't know. What is it? Marks. Oh shit. She answered with lethal seriousness. 2 red dots. There were scabs on them this morning. Tom stepped around the table to examine them. How could something like that have happened? Elise asked as he touched them. An insect bite, he shrugged. Nothing to worry about. Elise gazed down into her coffee cup. I'm not so sure, she answered softly. What do you think it could be? He asked, walking back around again. I don't know, but it scares me. The thought of them putting something inside my body scares me to death. Tom downed the last of his coffee. He plucked the cup down in front of him. Then you've got to see a doctor, he concluded. I mean it. You've got to put something like this to rest once and for all, or it will eat you up forever. She smiled across the table at him. I will. 3:45 p.m. Elise lay bedside baby Zoe on the thick carpet of the playroom floor. Does Zoe like rabbits? She cooed, brushing a stuffed animal over the infant's face. She smiled lovingly. Oh, she likes rabbits. Elise laughed, touching the soft coat against the skin of her face. Zoe loves her rabbit. This was Elisa's favorite time of day. With Tom at work and Tom Jr. at her mom's, the house was at last quiet, and she could devote time to Zoe, just the two of them. She rolled on her back with Zoe on her stomach. Do you want to go for a ride? She sang to her, Baby, want to go for a ride? Elise snuggled up to the infant, staring deep into her eyes, then held her there a prolonged moment. What? She wondered aloud, setting Zoe down at her feet as she stood to make certain she had it right. With windows and doors shut on the breezeless Southern California day, the curtains in the room were fluttering. What? And then, as she stood there in the center of the room, she felt it. No way. A freezing cold wind running through her long chestnut hair. Elise made an involuntary circle around her baby, glaring as she examined the 4 corners of the playroom. I know you're here, she warned the invisible presence that had entered. I know because I can feel you here, in the room with us. So listen to me now. You can do what you want to me and my husband, but leave our children alone. Holy hell, they came back. No way. Yeah, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. This book terrifies me. Chapter 2. In California again. So October 25th, 1989 at 6 p.m. Tom came home from work on Wednesday evening to find Elise where she had been for the past 2 nights, in the study, buried beneath a stack of books concerning UFOs, extraterrestrials, and spiritualism. He walked over behind her chair, then pecked her on the cheek. What you reading? She held the book cover up in front of him. Intruders. It's about alien abductions, and there are others. She hastened to add, waving a free hand at the pile. I've even got my brother Glenn downloading information from UFOnet. UFOnet? Has anybody else heard of UFOnet? I've never heard of that. But I want to see what it is. I'm gonna have to check it out after. UFOnet. UFOnet, yeah. She chortled incredulously. It's a worldwide computer network. He nodded glumly, then shuffled to the door. How was work? She asked, looking up from her book for the first time. It's this metro rail, he groaned, undoing his tie. It's already weeks off schedule, he shook his head. And after this past weekend, I can't say I really give a damn. The whole project, everything seems so insignificant, so pointless. Well, dinner won't be ready for a while yet, so why don't you wash up, take a shower? She winked, it'll make you feel better. That night at the dinner table, Tom's attitude seemed to have turned 180 degrees. He was more sure of himself, even optimistic, as he served up portions of chicken and vegetables to Elise and Tom Jr. I've been thinking a lot about what happened this weekend, he began, passing a plate, but it wasn't until just now that it came to me. A way of approaching all this that might help us both. Elise took the plate from him. Okay, what's your idea? He snarled a chicken leg from out of the casserole dish. Fact is, I don't think either one of us is faring too well lately. Neither of us sleeps anymore. You're turning into some kind of UFO fanatic, and I can't do my job worth a damn. He placed the chicken leg on Tom Jr.'s plate. That's not us, Elise. It's not what we're about, and it's gotta change. She was mincing the chicken. I'm sorry, she was mincing the chicken on Tom Jr.'s plate as she spoke. Go on. Anyway, I believe you got to face challenges straight up, or you'll never overcome them. So I'm suggesting we do two things. He raised his fork from the table. The first is to go back to the tabletop mountain to see it again, where it happened, and if we're lucky, maybe even why it happened. We've got to come to grips with what happened. I would never go back there. These people are crazy. No way. At least because one thing's sure, we can't make it go away. It's too much a part of us. We're two different people than who we were because of it. Tom tried to assess her reaction. There was none. And the other, you said there were two. The second is that we get this off our chest. We can't hold the inside forever. And so my second idea is that we tell Wolfie and Carol and John and Vivian everything that happened last week. Having finished serving, Tom turns attention to his own meal. Hell, they're our parents, right? If we can't trust them, who can we confide in? And God knows, Elise, I feel like we both need someone to talk to about all of this. Tom waited for a response. Finally, he asked, "So what do you think?" "I think it's dangerous." "Which one?" "Both," she retorted. I don't know how you feel about it, Tom, but I feel like we barely got out of there alive. So you run from it, pretend it never happened? No, her fair complexion, Brendan. I'm a grown woman with two children to depend on me, Tom. What if something happened? It wouldn't just be you or me. Think about them and their future. That's what I am thinking about, he insisted. Don't you think I see what's happening? Elisa's temper cooled as she contemplated the effect of the experience was already having on her family, how ragged they both become. And the second idea, he asked more calmly, what about that? Her attention turned to the plate on the table. She fidgeted with her potatoes. I don't know why she didn't tell her about the incident that happened, the one that I just read about, saying that she could feel the cool air in the playroom and that they were there watching her. Why wouldn't she tell him? What the hell? I'm not sure she confessed. On the other hand, or then on one hand, I'd like to be able to discuss it with someone, especially my parents. On the other, I don't want them to think less of me for it. She fumbled for the words. What I'm really trying to say is I'm terrified to think we're gone crazy. Even if we are crazy, they're still our parents, he said, reassuringly. You'll still be their daughter or daughter-in-law. I know, she agreed, taking a deep breath, but even now, you here at home, Tom, I'm shaking like a leaf just talking about it. No, she said, shaking her head, convinced. Not now, not yet. I'm just not ready. Well, all I'm asking is that you think about it. Whatever we do, we need to do it together. He smiled wanly. Let's face it, we're each other's best friend. Without you, there'd be no one to share my feelings with. Likewise, she admitted, just one of the many fringe benefits to experience, I guess. Tom took a gulp of milk. By the way, did you get to the doctor like you said you were going to? Yep, she answered, swallowing. All checked out this morning. Bona fide 100% healthy. Dr. Wallach couldn't really tell what caused the marks, but he said it was nothing to be concerned about. And the other? Asked Tom asked Tom between forkfuls. The problem with the bleeding? It's not so unusual to spot every so often, especially this soon after Zoe. Is that what the doctor told you? She nodded. So what causes that to spot, I mean? Nerves, answered Elise, taking a sip of Coke from her glass, just nerves. The topic of returning to the tabletop mountain did not come up again that night or the next. But then, peculiarly, on Friday afternoon, Elise called Tom in his office to tell him she changed her mind and wanted to go afterward. She spoke with her brother Glenn, who agreed to babysit, and it was decided they would leave for Tabletop Mountain early the next morning. They're going back. These people are crazy. Why would you go back to that? I get they want to understand it, but wow. So near Tabletop Mountain at 10:30 a.m. Moments before they departed, Elise put the last night's scribbled note on their kitchen table, and it read, "Dear everyone, we feel we're being called back. God willing, we will return. Our love for our children and family cannot be expressed in mere mortal words. Tom and Elise Gifford, October 27th, 1989." Elise was thinking back to those words she had written late last night, so somber and so true. It felt strange driving down Black Canyon Road in the Ford camper exactly as they had done 1 week before, she reflected. But there was more to the return than curiosity or the hope of vindication. Originally reluctant to venture back, she, like her husband, had come to realize that until they found answers to the questions that plagued them, there would be no peace in their lives. Tom cast a concerned look at Elise as they passed Wild Horse Canyon Road and the Mid Hills campground. Shit, sorry, just 1 second. Sorry, I had someone at my door. Shh. It's all right, Jack. Jack. Shh. They're gone now. You're good, buddy. Tom cast a concerned look at Elise as they passed Wild Horse Canyon and the Mid Hills campground. Silent for the better part of the trip, she was pensive and frightened. You okay? She nodded bravely. You're nervous, aren't you? A little, she answered. He eased his foot off the gas pedal, slowing the truck as he got his bearings. Me too, he admitted, but also a little excited. I know. I could tell the other night at the dinner table when you first mentioned it. Tom's eyes scanned the horizon. To the west lay the Providence Mountains. Due east stood Wood Mountains, and the valley they returned to see. They were near, very near. I don't understand why the hell they went back. This is crazy. I get they want answers, but what I read in this book, what happened to them, is not only terrifying, it's disgusting. You're free now, Jack. Guess you know me pretty well, he remarked. Well enough to understand that you thrive on competition and probably see today as some kind of challenge. Not me, they scare me, Tom, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. He took the truck east onto Black Canyon Wash, beginning their trek down the side of the mountain. What makes you think I'm not scared? I am. I'm terrified, but there's got to be more to this than just surviving. Hell, there are all kinds of crazies into claim they've seen aliens. Just pick up the National Enquirer. But this really happened, and if there's a way to prove it, I intend to. Well, I don't know, moaned Elise. When we first started up this morning, I thought this was a good idea. To get to the bottom of this thing right here, where it happened, now I'm not so sure. Tom held the wheel steady as the camper lurched forward onto a crater on the road. I'm sorry, baby, is there something I can do? No, just tell me I'm not going crazy, I guess. You know that's what I feel like sometimes, that we're both gone stark raving mad together. That couldn't be what's happening, could it? He shook his head solemnly. I don't think so. You know, lately I've come to believe they're in our house. She looked at him, head cocked to one side. I mean, doesn't that sound crazy? But I swear when I was in the playroom with Zoe the other day, a wind came into the house and I just knew they were there. She clenched her fist. I just knew it. Now she finally tells him. Tom steered the truck to the right onto yet another unnamed trail as the trudge down valley continued. Why is that so crazy? He asked. If they can design and operate the kind of spacecraft we saw last week, who says they can't visit our home in California? He grimaced. No, I think they, whoever they are, can do just about anything they set their mind to. And I think they've been doing it in the Mojave for a long time. I'd like to know if there's any other accounts of what these people have been through the Mojave Desert. I should really look into that. And then, like, every time I read this book and go live, we can actually go through, see who else has an experience or whatever. There's got to be something on the internet. You still ready for tomorrow, Autistic? Hopefully, I get my book tomorrow. If not, I'll let you know for sure. I promise. I'll send you a bunch anyway. Well, anyway, she said, beginning freshly, that's why I came. Not to prove anything to anybody else, but for me and our family. To prove that it really did happen and that we haven't both gone insane. Maybe then things will get back to the way they were. Maybe then we'll be able to live with ourselves again. Their descent was almost complete, and as the truck plowed through the foothills toward the wash beneath Woods Mountain, Tom could understand why Indian tribes such as Paiutes and the Mojaves considered this ground sacred. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. It's sacred ground where they're camping. Truly, it appeared otherworldly, its stark, desolate terrain, heightened by macabre volcanic formations that gave testimony to the violent turbulence that seethed beneath the surface. Moments later, the truck broke from the rocky, crater-ridden trail through the dry desert lakebed that made up the valley. Here we go, Elise muttered ominously, as if they were about to board a roller coaster. Tom smiled weakly. Joking or not, something subtle but persuasive had changed the moment they entered, he realized. Like the victim of some terrible crime, unable to face their attacker even in the courtroom. There was something of that feeling here for him and Elise. He felt suddenly intimidated, even guilty. What was there that lurked so dark in his mind that caused him to feel this way, he wondered. What had they done to him? I'm going to pull this truck to the exact spot where we camped last week, he murmured. Elise simply nodded. The more traumatized of the two, her feelings of awe and horror at returning ran even deeper and more acute. To her, this was anything but a challenge or contest of wills. Rather, she wanted to be rid of the experience, to exorcise whatever demons tainted them with these feelings of depression and remorse. Still, there was one thing she knew immediately upon entering the valley. Her memories, blisteringly real from the week before, anything but fantasy. What she and Tom had experienced was as real as granite mountains that enveloped them. Tom pulled the camper into the belt of high ground near the base of the woods mountain. He turned off the ignition, then sat for a drawn moment, a thousand impulses dancing like talons before him. Let's go, he said, turning to Elise, his expression solemn and determined. The two walked some 20 feet from the camper to the fire pit that Tom had dug the week before. Well, I guess we're here all right, he said in a matter-of-fact voice. Here's the fire pit we built. He pawed at the burnt mesquite that lay outside the circle of rocks with the toe of his foot. And here are the burnt branches that flew from it when it kicked the fire out. When I kicked the fire out. Yeah, I remember, she recalled in hushed tones. When the little ones, the ones with the red eyes, began landing all through the valley. Tom and Elise took several steps beyond the fire pit. Slowly, their eyes raised up and directly across the desert, some 500 yards. There, towering like some stark and tribute to the stars and heavens above, stood Tabletop Mountain, its huge flat top configuration jutting some 7,000 feet up from the desert floor below. Elisa's body quaked involuntarily as she stared out across the desert basin. Here, spread before her, was the landscape she had observed, trapped like a caged animal, hour after hour during their ordeal. I just don't understand why the hell they went back. I do and I don't. I don't get it. More so, I don't get it. And at that moment, it all came back to her. The mothership with its white lights flashing, capping the entire nighttime sky above. The gremlins mocking their horror at every stage of the torture. The illuminated figures, their enormous dark eyes ripping into their brain like daggers. The searcher, relentless as it canvassed every inch of the valley. The interminable sound of drilling resonating low and thunderous from deep inside the ground beneath the camper. The burning sulphurous stench that permeated the air of the camper, so violent and smothering. Elsie felt suddenly faint. Tom grabbed her from behind as she staggered backwards, mouthing soundless words that he could not understand. She tried to catch her breath but couldn't. What was happening? She worried as the visions she had experienced 1 week earlier came tumbling back like boulders from beyond the recesses of her subconscious. Tom Jr., the birth, the operating table, with blood gushing from his chest, surrounded by these things. What were they doing to him? How helpless he looked, and now the RAPE. Her attacker is coming toward her from a corridor filled with lights. She's lying on the ground, but it isn't the ground. And the artist is not a man at all. No, Elsie screeched, her body aching in Tom's arms as she clawed and scratched, attempting to fight him off. It's okay, it's me. Elsie, me. Tom. She stared into his face. Oh, I'm so sorry, she blurted, drawing him to her. No, it's okay. You had a flashback, he explained. A series of them. I've been having them too. What were they about? What was in them? Still pale looking and faint, Elise let Tom help her toward the camper. Are you all right? I mean, are you feeling better? Yeah, now I am. What did you see in your flashbacks? Tom opened the passenger side door of the truck, aiding her as she climbed into it. He was still contemplating a response as he reached for a Coke from the cooler, plucked off the tab, then handed it to her. I didn't really see anything, he began. I mean, they weren't visions like before, more like very powerful memories, recollections of things that happened last week. For instance, all of it, the spacecraft, the illuminated figures, but mostly the visions, vivid recollections of the first sighting as a kid and the other, the one I told you about. No question, those were the ones that came back strongest. Were there additional events you remember? She prodded. Anything different from what we saw that day. He blew a long breath from his lungs. Strange to remember. Lights. But not like the ones they were flashing, he uttered suddenly. They are on runners, like in that tunnel we talked about before. Tom cocked his head back, then shut his eyes very tightly, struggling. What do you mean? I don't know what I mean, Elise. I'm struggling. Like in a wrestling match. He snapped at her. Honest, that's all I can remember. She nodded understandingly. How are you feeling? He asked. Oh, I'm fine now. She dabbed at the beads of perspiration forming on her forehead. It's the heat and the memory. She shook her head, and just the sight of this godforsaken place. They need to leave. This is insane that they went back. They won't be staying. There's no evidence, he conceded. Nothing physical anyway, and that makes sense because I don't think they're physical beings. Not physical as we understand that word anyway. He stepped away from the door, then slammed it shut. Let's get the hell out of here. He started walking toward the other side of the truck when Elise called out to him. Tom, he turned. What is it? We don't have to come back to find them. What are you talking about? They're not here, she stated plainly. I know when they're watching. Upland, California, February 14th, 1990 at 9:35 p.m. It wasn't until several months later that Tom and Elise decided to confide all that was happening to Elise's parents. The experience was wearing them down. For Tom, work had become unbearable. The sleepless nights and horrific nightmares continued, but just as impairing was a feeling of guilt and isolation, as though he had done something terrible and held some dark and shameful secret that could be shared with no one. His powers of concentration at work had diminished, and the man once described as Mr. Dependable at Southwest Construction now struggled with the attendance and project to follow through. 3 weeks and months immediately following the experience had been even more devastating for Elise. She became reclusive, eschewing social contacts with friends and family for fear that they might discover what was happening. The dread she felt personally extended to the children, whose life outside the immediate family was vastly restricted, fearing that they might be injured or abducted by the creatures, whom both she and Tom believed watched them regularly. Wow. With the sense of isolation and helplessness growing, the two decided this was the time to share their experience. Elisa's folks, John and Vivian, had been watching the children that day in Upland, and they'd been invited over for dinner, so it seemed a simple matter to stay on for coffee and the discussion they so desperately wanted. Tom was sitting at the dinner table with Elisa's parents when she returned from the bedroom where Tom Jr. and Zoe were sleeping. Elise joined Tom at the table with coffee and dessert out of the way. Elise sat forward in her chair, then began uncomfortably. Tom and I want to talk to you about something very private. Something we've told no one else about. No one. Elsie's father, John, a strapping, soft-spoken man with short-cropped salt and pepper hair, sipped his coffee thoughtfully. Vivian, his blue-eyed wife, quietly waited. Yes, dear. You don't have to be concerned about confiding in us, she encouraged, no matter what it is. I know, Elise agreed. I've never had to be concerned about that ever, not even as a child, but Mom and Dad, something happened to Tom and me while we were in the Mojave back in October that's had a profound effect on our lives. She bit her lower lip as her chin quivered with emotion. I know this will sound impossible to you, but we had an experience with extraterrestrials. Elisa's mom reached for her hand across the table. You mean you saw a UFO? Is that it? She shook her head, looking to her, then to her dad. There's a movie that came out not long ago called Communion. Do you know that one? Oh my God, that is crazy. I'm gonna show you something. Oh my gosh, come here. Isn't that crazy? I have the book. It's a true story. And I actually read this a few years ago, and I was going to read it to you guys because, again, it's another alien. It's another experience with aliens. That's weird. I didn't know there was a movie. Wow. So she shook her head, looking to her, then to her dad. There's a movie that came out not long ago called Communion. Do you know the one? Yes, yes, I think so. Vivian agreed, glancing to her husband, who sat back, taking a long sip from his coffee cup. Well, that's something like what's been happening to us and Tom and me. I say happening because I'm not sure it's over yet. Elisa's dad, a gentle, reserved man by nature, deposited his cup down into its saucer, then stared at both of them and Tom quizzically. Are you trying to say that you two were abducted by aliens? He cocked his head to one side. Is this serious, or are you two putting your mother and me on? There was a protected silence. protracted silence, during which he looked long and deep into his daughter's drawn countenance and mirthless green eyes. He had seen that look before. "They hurt you, didn't they?" he asked finally. She nodded woefully. "It was horrible," she snarled, angry and hurt and crying now. "They came down from the sky, hundreds of them, and held us back at the camper." "They, the aliens?" asked John. She nodded again, totally absorbed now in relating the details of their encounter. Patiently and with true caring, they listened as Tom and Elise told them what happened and the depth of the emotions they were feeling. But the time that they had finished, it was nearly 1 a.m., and each was anxious to hear a reaction. It was John who spoke up, sensing the need to comment, and somehow tried to assess what they told him. "I believe that you believe that this has happened," he struggled. "Now, I'm no scientist, but what you're telling me defies everything I know. Space aliens, angels, and gremlins." He shook his head helplessly. "I love you more than anything, darling, but there's gotta be some other explanation." "Do you think we're lying?" Tom asked bluntly. "No," he answered unhesitantly. I think you and Elise are telling us everything as you believe it happened. Isn't it possible you saw some experimental jets or rockets the Air Force might have been testing?" Elisa's mom suggested. "You don't understand, Vivian," Tom objected. "We're not talking about two people looking up into the sky and thinking they saw a flying saucer." He waved his hand, palm up from side to side. "No, no, it was huge in scope. The spacecraft, the life forms themselves filled the entire valley." "Maneuvers then?" she offered. Tom's eyes flashed. "It wasn't experimental jets, and it wasn't maneuvers," he said. "Okay, okay," John negated. "We know what you're saying, but please realize we're just trying to understand to help you if we can." "Dad," said Elise, stretching across the table toward him, "you can help us by believing what we're telling you is the truth and that it really did happen the way we're telling you." Her dad's sanguine complexion had paled over the past 4 hours. He was tired and perplexed. "I hear you beside, but you know that part of it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that your mother and I see how upset you both are, and we still love you, and we're going to support you in any way that we can." "Your father's right, dear," chimed Vivian. "We don't know much about these things. Who can say what's possible or not? But you'll always have us here for you, no matter how things turn out." "Thank you," said Elise, embracing Vivian and then her dad. "I love you too both so much." Tom stood. He shook John's hand, disappointment palpable. "One thing you said that I can't agree with, that it doesn't matter if it really happened or not." "Well, it did happen," he said pointedly, "and it does matter." Few words were exchanged during the short drive back from Upland to La Morada. Generally, both were pleased at John and Vivian's willingness to help and understand, but Tom remained vexed at what he knew deep inside was true. Elisa's parents could not bring themselves to actually believe the events as they described them were true. Elisa and Tom lay in bed sleeping soundly that morning, even as they sensed another presence in the room. That feeling of a stranger watching must have penetrated through their subconscious because Elise began tossing agitatedly while Tom awakened momentarily to glance at the clock radio on the night table beside her bed. 2:38 a.m. In dreams, Elise imagined herself at Sunday service with her mom in the familiar surroundings of their hometown church on San Antonio in Upland. Tom was locked in one of his proudest moments, a final minute interception during the East West Championship football game in 1986. As all was as it should be for both until the church singing stopped and the crowd's cheering came to an abrupt halt. Each of them stood, Elise in church, Tom in a stadium, watched. The churchgoers' eyes seemed cold and alien, and even her mother turned to study the strange creature beside her. Tom was patted on the back and congratulated to the cheers of thousands of Bulldog Stadium. But now his teammates didn't know him, and the crowd became scientists staring at him as if he was a curiosity and not a person at all. And in the dreams and around them, always were the eyes like he'd never seen before, studying, probing inside both of their brains until their hearts were pounding and their minds raced to the point of bursting. Together they sat up in bed, their dream images merging into the reality of the dark. Shadowy outlines that stood now at the edge of their bed at that moment. It felt to them as if everything had stopped time, even the steady throbbing of their elevated heartbeats. Tom again glanced at the clock radio. Was he dreaming? 2:53 a.m. A scream rang out from the children's room where Tom Jr. and Zoe were sleeping. Elise was the first to enter. She flicked on the light instinctively. Since the inception of their trip to the Mojave, she had lived with the morbid fear that something horrible was about to happen to little Thomas. Now she stopped at the entrance to the room with her husband, watching in awe and horror as their child stood sound asleep in the center of the room, spinning like a top. What? Now she stopped at the entrance to the room with her husband, watching in awe and horror as their child stood sound asleep. So he's standing sound asleep in the center of the room, spinning like a top. That's crazy. You sons of bitches, Elise wailed, running to him, then scooping him up in your arms. You think you can do anything you want, but you can't. Don't you dare touch our children. Leave my children alone. Already Tom was beside her. It's okay, it's all right now, he was saying as he guided them back toward the bed. Tom Jr., cradled in her arms, was only now beginning to awaken. Mommy, what's wrong? Nothing, dearest, nothing. Everything is going to be fine, she soothed, laying him back in his bed, her heart still hammering. Now you just go back to sleep. Everything is fine now. Elise backed quietly away from him as his heavy eyelids dropped. She joined Tom, who stood watching from the doorway, then flicked the light off. But the moment she did, the boy leaped up suddenly in his bed. Don't turn off the light. What? But why? She asked, stunned. Because when you do, the little monsters come. Holy shit. She sighed. Thomas, there are no monsters. But there are, Mommy. They are. She insisted. They're short and they're ugly and they have red eyes. Tom and Elise left the children's room that morning, horrified to think that they were no longer safe, even in the environs of their own home. Why would you leave the child's room? Are you kidding me? Not only did they go back to the desert, the Mojave Desert, after what happened to them, but they're seeing their son, which is 2.5, spin around like a top, standing up, sleeping, and then they decide to leave the room after they think he falls back asleep again. When they turn off the light, he jumps up and says that they're short and ugly and they have red eyes, and she again leaves the room with her husband. I don't understand that at all. Wow. I think I might stop there. Yeah, because this is a whole new chapter. My throat's getting a little sore. But here's this book here, Communion, that I also want to read after I got a lot of alien books to read. But it says here on December 26, 1985, a secluded cabin in upstate New York, Whitley Strieber went skiing with his wife and son, ate Christmas dinner, leftovers, and went to bed early. 6 hours later, he found himself suddenly awake and forever changed. Thus begins the most astonishing true life odyssey ever recorded, one man's riveting account of his extraordinary experiences with visitors from elsewhere, how they found him, where they took him, and what they did to him and why. Believe it or don't believe it, but read it. For this gripping story will move you like no other, will fascinate you, will terrify you, and alter the way you experience your world. Hey, Delgado. This, wow. It's creepy as hell. So there's another one I need to read. Oh, no worries. No worries at all. I'm gonna get off here anyways. I'll get off here at 7. 8, I mean, in 4 minutes. Tomorrow, though, I'm going to be live. You still here, Autistic? Or Mysterious Mermaid and the Missing Shell? Are you still here, girl? That book is supposed to be in tomorrow, so I'm assuming it's going to be, and then we can read it. So I'll read it and we'll discuss it and talk about it, whatever, but we can start it tomorrow at 7 p.m. Actually, I forget what it's even called. I know it's the Falcon Lake Incident. I think that's what it was called. You're here? Okay, so you still okay with doing that tomorrow at 7 p.m.? I just want to make sure it's coming for tomorrow. Yeah, it's arriving tomorrow. I believe that is everything that I'm waiting for. Nope, 2 more Christmas presents. Sorry, the book is called When They Appeared. I need to change the title because I just put the Steffi's been blasting her music since both. Aw. That's what my kid's been doing actually. That's why I'm like, Leland, can you shut it? So I couldn't hear. Then he was playing his electric guitar and his amp was on. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even hear. All right, it's coming tomorrow. So it's called When They Appeared. And it's about the Falcon Lake incident in Canada. So that's pretty cool. Nice to read one of our own, right? And you said you were there too, weren't you, Autistic? Like you live there, or you live there, or you did live there? You've been there? Damn kids, I know, right? Pops right up for me. That's crazy. All right, I'm gonna share. Awesome. That'd be awesome. 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 I'm just gonna read these guys a quick little excerpt from this. So this one happened earlier before this book that I'm reading here. So this is about Falcon Lake. So it says this happened in May 1967. Falcon Lake incident in May 1967. Amateur prospector. Yeah, I'm gonna need help with the names. Mikulak, Stefan, Stefan ventured into the bush near Falcon Lake, Manitoba. He would reemerge claiming he not only seen 2 UFOs, but that one had severely burnt him and given him radiation poisoning. And the guy, I'm going to show you, there's got to be a photo. Oh, there he is. Hold on. I'm just going to put it on images for a second. Whoa, whoa. The hell just happened? There we go. Do you see the shirt? And no, you don't because I'm sharing the wrong damn thing. There we go. So it's this guy here. He had because he got so close to the UFO, it actually burnt his shirt, and he had like all these circles on him from when it took off. I can't remember. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like 5 by 4, isn't it? Yeah, 5 up, 4 across. It's crazy. And here's a UFO. It says a Falcon Lake incident. What the hell is this? Belgian UFO wave. UFO Global Reporting Center, Canadian government disclosure on 1967. Okay, so that is from the holy shit. I need to find the guy that said that one of the aliens made him a cookie. It was one of the books I had. Hey, Alberta. Yeah, you're back. I was playing with the dogs. I still listening. I just got my, or actually, I got my dog Jack groomed yesterday. He looks like a handsome little man. But when they give him a bath, I don't know what they used on him, but he's very itchy. He's very sensitive, so I have to give him a bath again. So he stops scratching. Well, I'm gonna go. I hope you guys have a great night. And I'll be back tomorrow with my guest, Autistic Shill. And we'll be reading about this book here, this UFO abduction that happened in Canada. She looks like a show dog poodle. Oh. All right. I hope you guys, sorry you came in now. I feel bad, but I do gotta go. You guys have a great night. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Bye.